When you went down, did you intend to commit suicide?
I didn't know what I wanted to do.
What did
I wanted it to stop, I know that.
Why did you change your mind and not do it, not take your life?
Well, when we got there, AC said right away, we can't go in, there's a police car blocking the entrance. And I said, well, isn't there another way to get in? And he drove around to some houses where there was a wall that he said, and looking between the houses, he said, well, it's right there. Yeah. And I think we saw people walking around. So I said, well, just go park somewhere. And he went to a orange grove and parked in an orange grove, strangely enough. And I know we were there for a while, and I think we turned on the radio then and became aware of what was...
Aware that you were a fugitive.
Yeah.
The LAPD was calling you a fugitive at that point.
Look, I can give a shit at that time what LAPD thought. Well, that's how I felt.
I know. But that's...
I wasn't concerned about LAPD. You know, I was concerned with stopping how I was feeling. And I asked AC, well, let's just wait a while and maybe they'll leave. And at some point he got out of the car and I laid down in the back of the car, and I did have the gun out. And at some point he came back, saw me and said, Juice, I'm taking you home. And he just started talking to me, and I said, yeah, take me to my mom. And
how close did you come to pull that trigger? Okay.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I can't say. I can't say.
A desperate moment for you, though, right? Personally.
I didn't feel desperate at the time. Actually, I felt calm. I truly felt, that the pain that I was feeling at the time would stop.
That's when really the whole thing started for you.
AC started back up the freeway. He made some phone calls saying that we were heading home, and after that I recall helicopters and press and well, the press. I mean, since that time I saw this one guy, the Geneva on TV, and this is what I've been fighting, I guess, since then, because they don't have facts. And what has been totally disconcerting is then they go and make up what they want to make up to I guess, I don't know what.
There will always be misinformation. In a case this big, OJ, you have to realize
this is not misinformation. This is lying. This Geneva sat on TV on a Larry King show and lied and said that when they discovered him, why did he go to the graveyard if he was 2 or 3 exits past the cemetery when they saw him? Nobody. I've read everything in this case. Nobody's ever said that. This guy made that up on the spot. We were actually roughly probably 10 miles coming back to LA from the cemetery, heading north on the 405. I guess he would say he was trying to make it to Canada now, on the 405, coming home at that time.
Why didn't AC stop and pull over?
AC's a friend. I wanted to go to my mom, and AC was going to get me to my mom.
Eventually you came here.
Well, my mom was here.
Oh, you assumed that. That's why you came back here.
Yeah.
It was a bizarre moment for most people in the country who saw it, in the world who saw it. OJ.
Yeah, well, it's interesting for me. I consider it almost insignificant in terms of this whole experience. In
the trial itself now, DNA evidence has been used in thousands of cases around the world successfully. But suddenly in this case it came under scrutiny. Well, obviously there are other cases where they've looked at DNA evidence and questioned it. But in this case it seemed that every time the prosecution came up with some DNA match with incredible odds that said that it's got to be O.J. Simpson.
Well, let's get totally real here. They came up with matches and results before there were tests done. They knew the results. In my opinion, Tracy Savage had a report, and we all know. I mean, let's, if we're gonna hold everybody accountable, let's hold them accountable too. Someone gave her results of tests right on the button, even before the test was supposedly sent out to be tested. I mean, why do people want to be blind to this? Why do they want to be blind to that? If you look in this case, you look at our witnesses. How many of our witnesses did a 180 on their testimony? When you look at the witnesses who took a complete back face on a cross-examination or on redirect by the prosecution, they're all prosecution witnesses trying to explain things. DNA is only as good as the people who are processing it. We have a human element there. It's only as good as people processing. I'm interested in DNA, and I believe in DNA. You know, I read of all Patricia Cromwell's books and stuff. I knew all about DNA before this case began. Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, I'm very interested in what they do. I spent a lot of time with Bob Blazer. I find it very interesting that DNA, when there's body fluids and rape cases and stuff, you know how many people they get out of jail? Possibly when DNA come up, maybe a third of the people with rapes and stuff. That means a third. How many people are in jail, innocent people are in jail, that the prosecution had these slam dunk cases, they put innocent people in jail, and fortunately, the good side of DNA when it comes to rapes and situations like that, they proved that these people didn't do it. And that same prosecutor, probably Gil Garcetti has done his share of them, maybe Marcia did it, their share, and was just as convinced that these people were innocent. Guilty.
Let me just ask you this question as a person would ask you sitting across. I mean, I don't have, this is not a prepared question or anything, but it seems to me that what you're saying is that everybody's out to get you. The police are out to get you. The prosecutor's out to get you. They'll trump up evidence. They'll sneak it here. They'll do it here. And all of a sudden they come up with O.J.'s guilty.
Well, no, how much? No,
it doesn't
I disagree
sound,
with that.
I know, but
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree with that.
That's an impression I'm getting.
It doesn't take many people. I may not doubt that maybe, well, I question, at one point I thought, early in the trial when I was somewhat, had some admirations for Marcia's passion, I thought maybe she was convinced that I had done this crime. As the case went on and I saw her misrepresent evidence, and since I've been out of jail and I hear what various witnesses had told me how she tried to intimidate them and consequently not use them when they didn't like what they had to say, like Cora Fishman, Nicole's best friend. Then I realized that she obviously had her doubts, because if she had a mountain of evidence that she thought was solid evidence, she wouldn't have tried to misrepresent so much of the evidence and also try to impact some witnesses.
So you think she knew you were innocent but couldn't turn back?
I think at one point of the case that she felt that. I saw a statement that she said there wasn't enough evidence, and then the next day, not her, but the DA's office, since the case, came and said she wasn't talking about my case, which is kind of hard to believe. But I know this, if you got the goods, you don't have to resort to some of the things that they resorted to. Okay. And we could talk about all of those things. Yeah. Those are things that I can't wait, hopefully, to have enough time to go into.
That's the problem here. Yeah. We have a certain amount of time. Time is always finite.
We
can talk for days about all of this.
I found it curious that someone like Mark Furman, at one point, oh, this was an honest cop, how can they say, even Van Adder of all people saying, oh, this is a fine cop, how can you say these things about this cop? I love Lang, because all the time Lang said, I didn't know him, this is the only time I worked for him. And Lang is a police officer that, I hate to use the phrase, the best of a bad lot, but you know, I thought that there was a certain amount of integrity to him.
Mark Furman didn't even know whether you were home or not.
Yes, he did.
Why would he?
If he'd have found the glove before he knew if I was home or not, you would have an argument. But he didn't find that glove until he knew when I left, what time I left, even though he, Phillips, Van Adder, Lang all testified that they didn't hear Cato. They climbed my wall. They're looking for O.J. Simpson. They claimed that he might be bleeding, that somebody else might be bleeding, that there might be a killer on this case. They don't know what they expect. They claim that. That's why they came over the wall. Yet the first person they found on the property, none of them asked where O.J. was. And if they asked, nobody listened to where O.J. was and O.J. might be, and they want to get in this house, they admitted that they would have knocked down the front door if they hadn't found these people.
Why?
Yet they let my daughter walk in first. Yeah. They're so concerned.
Why did they want to get in this house so badly, though? Why? Were they setting you up? Is that the deal?
Press, will you ask that question? Will you ask the press to answer that? Ask that question? Will you ask them if they were so concerned about O.J. Simpson and looking for O.J. Simpson and there may be a crime here, why? Why did they not ask Cato, where's O.J.? They're at O.J.'s house. Here's a guy they don't know. They claim nobody asked where O.J. was. They claim that. Mark Fuhrman later on said he talked to O.J., then he went out for 20 minutes. We'll walk back there. It takes you 2-3 minutes to walk back there, look around as much as you want, and come back. 5 minutes to do that. For 20 minutes, he's gone. He don't say, come with me. Oh, we got big concerns here. Come with me, going back there. They weren't looking for a dying person or a possible a criminal. He wasn't looking, but he didn't even draw his gun.
I've heard it said Mark Fuhrman is a racist, but he didn't plant the evidence.
Of course,
that's what people say.
Yeah. Well,
they believe he's a racist. Yeah. They believe he's a bad person, a bad cop, if you will, but they don't believe he put that glove there.
Why? Because they've been following the press. Why? There's a whole lot of people that think he did. I, for one, for a long time, my lawyers would tell you I wasn't buying into that. Okay. I wasn't buying into Mark Fuhrman planted the glove, but at one point I looked at when I saw him on the stand and I listened to him, and I started seeing all these little inconsistencies in their testimony. I am totally 100% convinced that he did.
Race became a big issue.
Is that a coincidence? You talk about coincidences. Well, yeah. Is that a coincidence that this man has talked about in the past, planting evidence? I heard one thing on this tape that the jury didn't hear. He said, I would never stand around. You come around there standing around waiting for somebody to come and tell them what to do. I'm not that kind of police officer. I'm a doer. Yet he wants us to believe that he sat around for 2.5 hours, did nothing, never talked about O.J. Simpson and some prior incident that he was aware of. He expects us to believe that. We've heard him on the tape saying this is what he doesn't do. This is what he despises in police officers. Yet he wants us to believe for 2.5 hours, minimum, he sat around and did absolutely nothing.
And why does he want to get you so bad, O.J.?
Why would he want to get any black man or Mexican American, a minority group? You have to ask Mark Fuhrman. I think he tried to, I don't know if he ever tried to explain it in his tapes. You know, I keep hearing these pundits on TV saying, well, he was talking to a screenwriter. They forget there were live witnesses that walked into that courtroom. There was a Kathleen Bell and Andrea Terry, people that the prosecution, Marcia Clark, was prepared to barbecue, knowing that they were telling the truth. She had heard from other people in the DA's office about Mark Fuhrman. She knew full well, yet every chance she had to down Kathleen Bell, to imply that this woman was a scorned woman and wait till we get, I can't tell you how many times you heard her dart, wait till we get to these women. Fortunately for these women, I mean, where's Tammy Bruce? They were going to vilify these two women before those tapes came out. They were vilifying them before these tapes came out, knowing that these women were telling the truth.
You have said that all your life you tried to ignore race.
Yes, and I still, when I say ignore, I try to ignore prejudice. I never tried to ignore race. I was born black. I was raised in the, I don't even call it a ghetto, in the projects. I loved where I was raised. And often I would say to Nicole, I wish my kids could have been raised the way I was raised, because it was family, it was friends, it was community. We were together all my life. I hear people talk to me about race. Oh, he's not black enough, or he just became black. You look at where I've given money in my life. It's always been to the community. It's always been to the Links, a black female national society, to my neighborhood where I grew up. Now, I've been involved in raising money for many charities, but when it comes out of my pocket, it normally goes to a minority group.
Isn't it ironic that it was probably, depending on which legal expert you listen to, it was probably the race card that got you acquitted?
You know, I hear this race card. Let's analyze this so-called race card. The deck. This is deck.
The deck of cards.
Was introduced by the media and the so-called pundits immediately. The minute they convened a grand jury, I saw Irina. I saw so many of the pundits and writers in this area write what that impact would be. That the case would be downtown instead of in Santa Monica, and it was all under racial lines. I then saw the first hand dealt from that deck, if you don't want to count Mark Fuhrman.
Well, I was going to say, it was Mark Fuhrman, according to you, it was Mark Fuhrman who played the first race card, because he planted the glove because you're a black man.
Well, you know, you're wording it a little differently than I had worded it.
And I don't mean to do that,
I'm saying, you're talking to me about the race card. This race card is not a conversation that I heard Mark Furman speak of, but it's something I've heard the media speak of, and I'm saying that the media has played it more than anybody. It was the media that was writing how many blacks were on the jury. These are Americans. What difference should it make? These are Americans. When this jury was impaneled, the thing that jumped out at you more than gender was race, and the media talked about it. They brought Mark Furman into this case, and I don't think anybody, you listen to Marsha Clark's closing arguments, I don't think there's anybody, including the prosecution, that doesn't think that this man is a racist. The prosecution knows it. Listen to Marsha's words in closing arguments. Yet they still, when you put a witness on the stand, my lawyers told me, you're vouching for that witness. We had many witnesses that we wanted to put on that stand because they had what we thought positive information for me, but we couldn't vouch for them 100%. We could not vouch for them. We didn't put them on the stand. They still put this man on the stand.
You and your lawyers, though, put that jury together. You were as much a part of it, and I'm sure race came into play, didn't it?
Oh, obviously, I think
you have to look
both sides. If you look at the voir dire, when they were dropping people, the prosecution started first. I think probably of their first 8 or 9 people, 7 or 8 of them were black.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously we sort of caught up.
What did you want?
At one point.
What kind of a jury did you want? Did you want a black jury, primarily black jury?
I wanted a fair jury. I wanted a fair jury. I would have said, at the time though, I was a little more, my eyes may have been open a little more to how much race was impacting the perception of this case. I may not have said that right. What I mean to say is in August, long before there were any evidence presented in this case, when you look at the hearing, the 911 calls, the buying a knife at a knife store and all that, none of that really came into the case, you know. But still, 70 to 80% of white America had already convicted me. I find that so ironic, so hypocritical for them, that same group of people criticizing this jury. They say they only took 3 hours to come to a verdict. That's not enough time. Yet, before there was a jury, before any evidence was presented in court, 80% from the polls, I don't always believe the polls, but 80% of white America, based on the polls, already had me guilty. And how can they say, you know, this jury listened to all the evidence. They didn't hear spin every night. They didn't sit there and see what Geraldo or somebody wanted you to hear about the trial. You know, the jury sat there and heard every bit of evidence. And, you know, I'm from the sports world. The world I'm from, and I give speeches, and I've given speeches for 30 years. Everyone who's ever heard me speak, many of them, I always say, accept responsibility for yourself. It has some religious overtones because those words came to me in a chapel service in Boston once. I tell people, don't blame your teacher if you're not getting good grades. Don't blame your coach if you're not playing up to what you think your ability is. Yet, and you know, you can call it a simple analogy here, yet I watched the prosecution and people out there who didn't watch this trial want to blame the jury. An American jury of 12 of Americans, 12 people. We went through the most extensive voir dire, I think, in the history of trials. We came up with 12 people who sat through that 9 months of what had to be agony.
Sure.
Yet they couldn't prove a case. They were wrong to begin with. I was innocent to begin with. They were wrong. It came out. The people heard the evidence, came to that conclusion, at least not guilty.
Is this your heart talking that they came to not guilty because of the evidence or because of race? Because there are some
evidence. I'm not going to buy into this race thing.
There are some who believe that they did it because they were fighting for a brother.
Fighting for a brother. You know, you tell those people, you go out into whatever neighborhood you want to get, and you show me a person that buy that, and you take them downstairs in every urban community in this country, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta, New York City, you'll see in most cases, the majority, certainly more than that, what is indicative in our population, the majority of jurors are black. And now go to jail and see how many blacks are on death row. The majority of people on death row are probably black or Hispanic. See, that's total BS. You know, everybody's looking for an excuse not to face the facts. They want to blame the jury. They want to bring black people that were on that jury. Just go into the prisons a day and see how many blacks are in prison. And you go into any courtroom in this country in urban communities, you look at the most serious crimes, you look at the jury, you see black people putting black people in jail daily. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little pissed.
That's okay. You're speaking your mind, I assume.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've never accepted excuses in my day. Every person, when you talk about these incidents in my life, the 911 call, whatever, the police officer ever walked up to me and didn't say, hey, he made no excuses. He accepted the responsibility. I've done that my entire life. And I'm watching people here trying to judge me who won't take the responsibility, who won't listen to facts, who get these skewed opinions that they get on TV, who made up their mind before any evidence was in this case, and then they're going to criticize people. I hear Goldman, who I have a lot of compassion for, because I know how he feels. I lost more than he lost. I lost someone I loved just as much as he loved, and I lost my life for the most part. I'm a little stronger than most people think. I'm not sitting in this house trying to commit suicide, which we'll get to. I'm not sitting around crying the blues about what's been going on. Hey, I'm trying to stand tall, and I'm going to fight what I have to fight. I see he go on TV. I don't know what the man's talking about. He wants 10-2. Hey, I got to tell you, I felt 10-2 even before this trial happened. I felt that to get 12 people to go one way would be difficult, that they should go to 10-2 or 9-3.
10-2, you're talking about conviction 10-2 in the jury.
Conviction, the jury. I was a believer in that. I see him go on TV. I don't know what he's talking about.
Well,
in my case, if it was 10-2, I would have been acquitted in 20 minutes instead of 3 hours.
One of the things he wants, he says, is justice, and he wanted you to take the stand and said that you're a coward for not taking the witness stand.
Well, he couldn't buy justice. I didn't need to take the witness stand. I have a constitutional right. I wanted to take the witness stand. I would love to sit down with Marcia Clark. I would love to sit down with Goldman. I would rather Goldman and Marcia Clark to be sitting right here interviewing me, but they're too busy making money. You know, they don't want to see OJ try to replenish what he lost. I'm the only person that lost anything financially, me and the taxpayers of this state. I don't see anybody trying to pay the taxpayers or me back. You know, that's all I want to do. I would have loved for Marcia Clark. Tomorrow, if Marcia Clark would sit down and talk to me, she can film it as long as I can market it. She can film it and ask me whatever she wants to ask me, and I'll answer every question.
Why?
Fred Goldman, let him sit down. He can ask me whatever he wants to ask me. But I'm the only person that law. I'm not out there at this point asking the public to send me money. I'm not doing that.
Why should you be able to make money off the tragedy?
I'm not making money off of tragedy. What tragedy am I making money off?
That's what people will say, OJ. They'll say you're making money off of this now.
Oh, the same people who had me convicted, the same people who had me guilty in August of '94. What do they say about Marcia Clark? What do they say about Denise Brown? What do they talk about Faye Resnick? They'll find one thing that they go to and say, I'm not making money for being here tonight. They'll show that on TV. I tell you what. Let's take a look at Faye Resnick and Denise Brown's tax returns for the last 10 years and their tax return for this past year. Let's see who's benefiting from this tragedy. Let's take a look at Marcia Clark, who I see has just gotten 42 years of salary. 42 years of salary with a book deal. Plus, she's probably going to equal that in her appearance. I don't begrudge her that. I don't begrudge her that, but I begrudge the hypocrites, the hypocrisy that says OJ is making money on this tragedy. No, I'm just trying to replenish what I lost. And you want to hear from me? Hey, you don't have to buy the tape. You know, if you want to hear from me, I'm here to speak. I got 4 kids, but 2 kids that I am the sole supporter of, financial supporter of. The Browns have given them love, have maintained what Nicole and I had given those kids. Those were happy kids when they got them. They're happy kids today. I will always be grateful to the Browns for maintaining what Nicole and I had instilled in our kids. But every month I send a check down there for my kids. Yet I got people out here that's saying that as an American, I can't go out and make money. I was real willing to do an interview free. Those same people are picketing outside of the network to keep me from doing it free. This is not about making money. This is about what I consider prejudice against my rights as an American to earn a living and support my family.
You can hear the helicopters overhead. You're a prisoner here.
Good time. No, I'm not a prisoner here. I am not a prisoner here. I go out, I go to dinners, I read where the rags, once again, I read where, oh, you went to this restaurant, the tabloids, and they throw these napkins. I've never been in a restaurant. The restaurant that they said that I've never been in every restaurant I've been in since I've been out, the managers have been courteous, they've been encouraging, they asked me to come back. I've had a great meal. If I walk out here, if I've seen 1,000 people outside of my house, 995 of those people, white women from Iowa, from Georgia, from Canada, from South Africa even, have all been encouraging, telling me to keep my head up. You know, get your kids, go on with your life.
So you believe there are people who believe in you?
Oh, hey, I got over 2 million pieces of mail from people that that have sent mail to my house and my office that totally believe in me, and many people that when I was in Panama City, the people were so encouraging down there. It was just mind-boggling. I'm aware of a tabloid show giving a lady a sign. We have 8 witnesses to this. Gave her a sign, had her drive by, "Go away, OJ," with the sign, and that was the story they got across the country. You know,
the day the verdict was read, and you were set free, there were some people who said it was in very bad taste. I don't know if this happened again. This may be tabloid. This may be reports. Toasting champagne, celebrating victory, celebrating vindication, knowing that, at least in your mind, the real killers of Nicole were still out there somewhere.
Hey, the real killers had been out there for a year and 4 months. This was, friends, there was nothing planned. Excuse me, there was absolutely nothing planned. I came home to a relatively empty house. I walked through the front door, I saw my long-term assistant, Kathy Rander, and Al Cowlings. I think Nicole Povers, who was my jailhouse liaison lawyer, up the front. I walked into this room and stood almost where we're sitting now, and they pretty much left me alone. Phone calls were coming that I wasn't taking. A couple of calls I did take from real close friends. I think because of the media outside, people saw I was home, and friends began to come over. Some friends sent food here, and it was such a spontaneous thing. You saw balloons and flowers coming. The majority of those balloons and flowers were coming from my neighbors. Welcome back to the neighborhood. That's not the report you got from the media. And so it was a total spontaneous thing. And you know what we ended up doing? That they may have written someplace, but I really hadn't read it, and I didn't read a lot about what transpired that week. I was focusing on my kids and adjusting. You know what we did? We stood in the other room, packed with people, probably 50 or 100 people, I don't know. We spoke, we prayed, and we sung religious songs. That's not the image the press gave America, though, did they? They gave champagne and partying and dancing. No, we sung religious songs. We prayed together as a group. That's what we did in this house that day. Yes, there was a jubilant feeling. I was home. Yes, and I felt it to an extent. I was still
no
somewhat
apologies
numb.
for that.
Absolutely none. None. Do you think, I mean, I'm looking at Denise Brown and Faye Rustin going to parties, starting love affairs, going out of love. Why shouldn't they have the right to do that? Why shouldn't they have the right? I see Denise Brown in court to testify for her sister's death, slipping a number to Tony the Animal somebody, right? I mean, I don't see anybody criticizing that. I don't, you know, picking up a guy at her sister's, her ex-brother-in-law's trial for the murder of her sister? Picking a guy up under those circumstances, and I'm being criticized because friends are here praying with me, singing songs that I'm home, that I've been, in my mind and in their mind, vindicated.
Doesn't wash with you.
Doesn't wash with me at all.
If you didn't do this horrible crime, who did? Who killed Nicole? Who killed Ron Goldman?
I wouldn't be sitting here with you now if I knew. I will say this. I have absolutely no doubt. I think if you talk to some people who have been close to Nicole the last 4 years, they feel the same way, that the answer is somewhere in the world of Faye Rusnick. No doubt. You talk about coincidences. How much of a coincidence is it that roughly 10 days before Nicole's death, I'm on the phone with Faye Rusnick. She's crying to me, begging me to talk to her boyfriend to marry her. A guy who is a great guy, Christian Reichardt.
Christian Reichardt.
Nobody has anything bad to say about Christian. Impeccable record, great guy. Christian couldn't do it because she had problems. She moved out of that house, moved in with Nicole for the weekend. I don't know how long she had moved in. Just Nicole, she was a friend, Nicole brought her in. 4 days later, even though Nicole often complained and knew all about this woman's drug problems, Nicole saw fit to call friends together to put this girl away because it was totally...
To have an intervention.
She was totally out of control with it. Nicole called her friends together. The next day, they put this woman in a rehab center. 3 days after that, Sydney Brooke, my daughter, stated that probably the last time she heard her mother was crying, you know. We know now that that was in all likelihood Faye Rusnick, who claims that Nicole was giggling. This woman is in a rehab center. Nicole wouldn't be on the phone with her giggling, and any mother out there that got an 8-year-old daughter, your daughter know if you're crying or if you're giggling. My daughter, Sydney, is a sharp girl. She knows if her mother is dying or giggling, or crying rather, or giggling, and within hours of this, Nicole's dead. Now what happens after this? This woman claims that she was fearing for her life from AC and Bob Shapiro, for God's sake. She runs away. She runs and goes into hiding and begins to spin her yarn. And hey, we can go through her story. Sure, you're going to hear a lot about this in this civil trial and obviously some other civil trials. You think I had a dream team before. Wait till you see my litigators with the tabloids and people like Faye Rusnick. This woman flat out lied. I'm calling her a liar. Her book, I can show you, it's provable. The prosecutions are lied. Her best, what she claimed to be her best friend, is murdered. If she know nothing about it, why does she have to lie? Go to Cora Fishman, Nicole's best friend. Nobody doubts that Nicole spent more time with Cora Fishman than any other person other than her kids and maybe me from time to time in the last 4 years of her life. Find out if the things that this girl has said about Nicole are true. This girl just lied and lied and lied. And I ask myself, why? If you're innocent, if you don't know nothing, why do you run and hide and say your life is in danger? And why do you lie time and time again? And it hurts me because I wasn't speaking to Nicole in the end because of Faye Rusnick. Because Faye Rusnick asked me, wanted to know why she wasn't invited to an affair that I had invited Christian and Dr. Fishman and his son to, and I hadn't invited the girls because they're Nicole's friends, and I was going to be with Paula Barbieri. Faye Rusnick, Christian was there, said, I want to go. Hey, we don't play that. We love you, OJ. We love Nicole. I want to get to know Paula. I want to get to know Nicole's, whoever she ends up with. I invite her. Nicole calls me and screams at me because Faye tells her a total different story. When I asked Faye, what didn't you tell her you invited yourself? She said, oh, come on, OJ. This is a week before her murder. Come on, OJ. Nicole loves you. You're back with Paula. She loves you. I say, Faye, do me a favor. Call Nicole and tell her you insisted on going to this affair. Now, that's not the story you've been getting from Faye Rusnick, is it? But fortunately for me, there were witnesses to all of this.
Again, it's you. Well, first of all, you don't have any proof that Faye Rusnick was involved.
Oh, it's like what proof that I murdered anybody? I mean, everybody, you can use the same circumstantial evidence for Faye Rusnick. We can look in her past, and we find out that anything remotely like this might have happened in San Francisco. Did she ever leave the country before because of something that might have happened? I don't know. Why don't we take a look at it? These investigative journalists out there, these tabloid shows, why don't we go and take a look at it? Why don't we just go and see?
Or the police.
Or the police. I ask you a question. Have you seen anywhere, have you seen written anywhere where Marsha Clark, Phil Van Adder, Phillips, Darden, anybody ever asked Faye Rusnick who delivered her drugs? We know she was broke. That's everybody knows she was broke. We know it's expensive to do the type of things that she was doing at the time, allegedly, but they had an intervention. Evidently, she admitted it. Nicole took them to her stash. I got a question. Did they ever ask the question, did anybody deliver you drugs this week?
I'm not aware of it, but again.
But this is the most thoroughly investigated case of all time, yes.
This is your contention, that she and Ron Goldman, Nicole and Ron Goldman,
I don't know
were
about
killed,
Ron Goldman.
but they were killed accidentally, in a sense.
I don't know. I can't talk about that. I have absolutely no idea. I know Nicole is a confrontational person. She always has been. She's been confrontational with house help. I noticed that the rags hadn't gone to all the housekeepers and all the nannies who've worked in this house. All of them will give you a totally different story, and many of them have, even in Europe, who live in Europe now. I've given you a totally different story than what the tabloids have been telling you about my relationship with Nicole and who was aggressive and who was not aggressive in this household. I don't know. I just know if someone came to that house looking for Faye, doing whatever, Nicole would have been very confrontational with him because that was her nature.
Well, I knew that we would never have enough time to talk about everything in 90 minutes approximately.
It's frustrating for me because I try to say everything.
Let me do one thing though, and this, we can talk for hours, we can talk about evidence, people will still have questions, they'll have their own opinions. Let me look directly into the eyes of O.J. Simpson. like so many people watching this tape are doing right this minute, and say to you, did you kill Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman?
Absolutely not. I couldn't kill anyone. I couldn't do it. You know, one of the things that probably saved my life when I was in that orange grove was that my mother always told me if people who commit suicide can't go to heaven. I expect, hopefully, I pray that one day I'll see Nicole again. I have no doubt that's where she is. I couldn't kill anybody.
No matter what you say or do. No matter what you say or do, though, there are people that are not going to believe you.
They'll believe it, you know, and hey, I can't help that. I can just say to them, look at my history, not the history that a Tammy Bruce is trying to create, but let's look at the facts. People lived in this house. Go to all the people who ever lived with Nicole and I. Go to all of her friends. You know, go to Nicole's words and things like her divorce deposition, or these spontaneous utterances that she made at the 911 call where there was absolutely nothing in '93 physical that happened between us. Go to all of these people and find out, see the nature of me. I can tell you honestly that other than my '89 thing with Nicole, once on a football field with Mel Lunsford, Mel, sorry to bring your name up, I had a fight with a guy named Mel Lunsford on the football field. 3-4 inches taller than I, 50 pounds heavier than I. I can tell you in my adult life, I never had a fight with anybody. Everybody got along with me. Everyone who's ever worked in this house would tell you, if anything, I was a peacemaker in this house. My history, you talk about my history, that is my history. You talk to people who live with me, you talk to people who work with me, you talk to people in my public. That was my history. I didn't get into confrontations. You know, I've had my arguments with Nicole. Or Nicole has had her arguments with many people, with house help, with her mother. But Nicole was a strong woman, and she, I can tell you this, I say this without any reservation. I think if you go to any friend of hers, somebody like Tammy Bruce, Nicole would punch her. Nicole would punch her right in her face.
She could push your buttons too, couldn't she, OJ? Nicole.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, she could.
But not
Do you know anybody that's been with a woman for 15, 17 years that the woman couldn't push his buttons?
But not enough to kill her? Not enough to get that angry?
Not enough really to hit her or to purposely injure her. Never. Even in '89, my goal in '89 was just to get her out of my bedroom, not to hurt her.
You're the only one who knows really the truth of what you're saying.
No, there's somebody else that knows the truth.
Who's that?
It's the person who killed him.
Yeah. You can live with yourself?
Yes. I think I've been a good guy. I think I've been a good person. I think my life has shown it. I believe in God. God has been with me. He's made me strong. I hope even today, I kind of, there's things I don't like what I said today because I don't want to go to certain people's levels. And today I think I did. But I've had so much in me, so much stored in me, there's so much more that I want to say, and I kind of apologize if I got a little carried away there, but that's me. That's anybody who's ever played golf with me. Everybody who knows me know that I'm not a guy, I say what's on my mind. Everybody knows where they stand with me, and I like to think I've been supportive of everybody, even people who have been critical of me. Virtually every one of them, I could tell you a time, and they would agree that they came to me for help when they were in. Women, friends of Nicole's, who I think probably feel that I'm guilty, that when they were at places in their lives where when even Nicole wouldn't speak to them. You ask Kris Jenner. They came to me, and I was there for them.
You didn't kill her?
No, I did not kill anybody. I could not and would not.
Thank you for your time, OJ.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.